A frail hand, more used to shelving books than scrubbing floors, pushed open the CEO's private suite. My daughter's fever kept her home, sir, the silver-haired woman said, voice steady as old oak. So tonight, you restuck with me. What happened in the next 10 minutes would splinter one man's carefully engineered universe and plant the first seed of a family neither of them knew they needed. Evelyn Grant had never set foot in a place like Quantum Works Tower. Not during daylight hours at least. From the sidewalk, the 73-story monument looked like a slice of moonlight wedged into downtown Boston, all glass and chrome and quiet humming power. Tonight, under a sleety March drizzle, the lobby floor reflected the chandelier's glow like a frozen lake. The guard at the reception desk barely glanced up when she signed the visitor ledger. A badge spit out of the printer temp staff. It proclaimed, and Evelyn pinned it beside the little gold hummingbird brooch her late husband had given her their last Christmas together. She patted it for luck, then hoisted the bucket of supplies her daughter June usually carried on shift. June was 39, single mother, caregiver to 2 opinionated teenagers, and scheduled for the 7 p.m. 3 a.m. janitorial rotation. But influenza had flattened her that morning. 102-degree fever, skeletal chills, and without a second income the mortgage would lurch into arrears. So Evelyn, former librarian, arthritic knees and all, had borrowed June's uniform, rolled the cuffs twice, and promised she could manage one night of mopping. Elevator music chirped overhead as she rose toward the penthouse floors. Each ding made her stomach flutter. She decatalogued thousands of books in 50 years, soothed countless upset toddlers at story time, but this was different. Here she was an intruder in a silent kingdom of million-dollar deals. 44th floor, executive suite, doors parted. Soft beige carpet silenced her steps. To the right stretched a boardroom framed in mahogany. To the left, a shimmering corridor that smelled faintly of bergamot and power. Evelyn checked the work order on June's clipboard. CEO office urgent pre-board cleaning. Urgent, she mused. Everything up here is urgent except the things that matter. She found the door, frosted glass. Logan Price, chief executive, pulled a deep breath and pushed. Inside, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a chaloed city. Desks in this place didn't huddle against walls. They claimed center stage like grand pianos. A lone shape sat behind the mahogany slab. Ty-loosened eyes locked on dual monitors that splashed blue across sharp cheekbones. Evelyn froze halfway across the threshold. The man looked up, startled. I didn't order dinner. I am not takeout, she replied, voice steady as a bookmark sliding into place. Housekeeping. My daughter's fever kept her home tonight. She lifted the spray bottle as proof. So you restuck with me. Silence stretched. The wall clock ticked. Logan Price, 38 years old, self-made billionaire per Forbes magazine, studied her as one might study a comet suddenly visible at noon. His hair was the color of chestnut bark after rain. Under the soft office lighting, tired shadows ringed his gray eyes. At last he stood, tall, athletic, but with the subtle stoop of someone who forgot posture mattered. He extended a hand automatically, then seemed to remember the nitrile gloves clutched in hers and lowered it. I am sorry, Mrs. Grant. Evelyn Grant. Mrs. Grant. He inclined his head. Most cleaning happens after midnight. She smiled. Most EOs are home by then. Apparently neither of us follows protocol. Corners of his mouth twitched, surprised. Fair point. Evelyn set her bucket down, knees popping like pin cones in a fire, and surveyed the surface of his desk. Not a speck. What on earth could be urgent here? Then she noticed the coffee ring near the keyboard, the fingerprint smudges on the side credenza, and the faint track of boot grime near the balcony door, each small, but to a perfectionist preparing for a board meeting, chaos. Give me 10 minutes and a fresh pot of tea, she said, slipping latex over gnarled fingers. Tea, he echoed. Chamomile, she specified, for those eye bags. He blinked as though she dehacked his calendar. I don't think we have chamomile. You do now. From her apron pocket she drew a single sachet. Wrinkled but fragrant. Gift for my garden club. Hot water will do. Something in his face softened bewilderment mellowing into curiosity. I'll see what I can do. While he disappeared into the kitchenette, Evelyn wiped glass and wood with patient circles. Years of shelving heavy atlases had left her wrists deceptively strong. Years of widowhood had left her mind delighting in usefulness. She aligned pens, corralled stray paperclips, slid a framed photo of Logan with an older gentleman back into plumb lens symmetry. The photo's brass plaque read Arthur Price, 1945-2018, father-founder. Evelyn felt a pang. She knew that raw new absence, the way furniture seemed lost without the body that once occupied it. She whispered a librarian's blessing, may memory shelve itself where it can be found. Logan returned, carrying his steaming mug. No inscription, he joked. I hope that is acceptable. She took it gratefully. Perfect. She set the mud near the window to cool. Vapor curled upward, painting fog on the night skyline. He ran a hand through his hair. Mrs. Grant, you really don't have to. A dull thud interrupted him. The balcony door, not fully latched, had whipped open with the wind. Papers flew like startled birds. One sheet slapped his face, another skimmed across polished floor toward the ventilation grate. Evelyn's reflexes, honed by decades of catching toddlers before they toppled off storytime stools, kicked in. She lunged, pinning 2 contracts beneath her palm and a third under her sensible shoe. Logan blinked, then scrambled after loose pages. Together they corralled the storm. At last he closed the door and clicked the deadbolt. He exhaled, frazzled. Those were the revised term sheets for tomorrow's merger call. You may have saved my sanity. Evelyn shrugged modestly, smoothing her bun. Librarians handle plenty of paper emergencies. You were a librarian? For 42 years at Oak Hill Public, retired last fall. He lowered himself onto the edge of the desk, shoulders easing. I spent whole summers in a library after my dad passed. Safer than being home alone. I am sorry, she said, gesturing toward the photo. He nodded once, throat tight. Arthur Price died of a stroke right after we rang the NASDAQ bell. Everyone celebrated I was booking his hospice. In the hush that followed, city sirens warbled faintly. The TS aroma drifted between them, haunted, forgiving. Evelyn spoke softly. Grief is a long novel. People expect a pamphlet. Logan found himself chuckling, a brittle sound cracking open to something warm. You have a quote for everything? Only the important things. She dipped a cloth in vinegar solution and buffed the coffee ring. Gone. Topic change. Proper hydration. He raised an eyebrow. You've had 4 espresso pods since 7, she observed, pointing to the rubbish bin. Your kidneys are filing a formal complaint. He laughed outright. Bossy. Efficient. She produced a sealed bottle of spring water from her bag. Rolled it across the desk like a bowling pin. He caught it, amusement glittering. Yes, ma'am. A comfortable silence settled, broken only by the steady swish of her rag against wood. Out of the corner of her eye she noticed him watching. Not in the dismissive way some Sudantai executives watch staff, but with genuine fascination, as if she were the first unscheduled miracle of his week. Finally his gaze flitted to the clock. You must have other floors. Only yours needs seeing to before the board arrives at dawn, she said. June's team will handle the rest. A shadow crossed his expression. Your daughter shouldn't lose pay because she is sick. Evelyn wrung the cloth, water dripping. Life rarely consults bank statements. He opened a drawer, pulled out an embossed envelope and scribbled something inside. Consider this a thank you for rescuing those term sheets in my bloodstream. He slid it across. But Evelyn shook her head. Sir, I am not a charity case. I want he implying. I know, she softened. But if you'd like to help, let June keep her shift. Flu only lasts a week. Mortgage. 28 more years. He hesitated, then tucked the envelope away. Done. Evelyn nodded, satisfied. She finished dusting a final shelf and peeled off the gloves. Joints ached, but heart felt strangely light. Room is ready for your empire's next chapter. He glanced around, astonished by the subtle order coasters placed, windows strict freeze. The faint scent of lavender oil replacing corporate sterility. You did all that in 20 minutes. 1 page at a time, she said, quoting her own mantra. He escorted her to the door. Mrs. Grant, would you mind if I borrowed that quote for tomorrow's meeting? Only if you cite your source, she winked. As she stepped into the corridor, he called after her. You never told me why you still carry a librarian ST stash on a janitor shift. She turned, silhouette framed by warm hallway light. Because no matter the job description, people always need a good story and a cup of kindness. The elevator dinged, door sliding apart. She offered a small wave. Good night, Mr. Price. Logan, he corrected softly. Good night, Logan. When the doors closed, Logan stood alone amid polished grandeur, now humming with quiet calm. Beside the cooling chamomile, he noticed something. She'd left a folded scrap of cardstock. Library checkout style, it read. Return date when grief feels lighter. E.g. A smile tugged his lips. For the first time in months, he felt less like a man sprinting across thin ice and more like a reader poised on the edge of a promising chapter. Down in the lobby, Evelyn exited onto wet pavement. She inhaled the night air sharp, electric, and despite the ache in her knees, her steps carried a buoyant rhythm. Somewhere high above, in an office she had dusted bare, a billionaire sipped chamomile because she said so. Perhaps the world could still listen to older voices, at least now and then. She pulled her coat tighter, the badge still pinned at her chest. Temp staff, she allowed herself a tiny, secret laugh. Tonight, temporary felt very much like the beginning of something lasting. The street light flickered, and she headed into the rain, humming an old library rhyme reminding children to keep books dry. The city shimmered ahead, pages waiting to be turned. Evelyn Grant awoke to the antiseptic hush of St. Catherine's cardiac wing. Her world condensed to the rhythmic ping of a heart monitor and the slow drip of clear fluid through an IV line. A pale dawn pressed against the window, rosy at the edges yet somehow cold. And for one fragile minute she wondered why the ceiling tiles were the color of skim milk instead of the honey oak beams she'd grown used to at home. Memory returned like a film reel, faint chest tightness on the bus ride home from Quantum Works. Nausea she'd dismissed as nerves collapsing on the kitchen linoleum while trying to brew peppermint tea for June. The end's voice, calm yet urgent, had been the last sound before everything fell away. Now, from across the narrow room, a plastic bin of personal effects sat on a rolling table, her glasses. the hummingbird brooch, and a sealed manila envelope she didn't recognize. A handwritten label read, "E. Grant Private." Evelyn eased the bed to a sitting angle and reached for the envelope with shaky fingers. Inside lay 8 small note cards, each stamped with the Quantum Works logo, and an ivory fountain pen wrapped in tissue. She unfolded the first card. "Mrs. Grant, they say stress shrinks the heart. I refuse to let that happen to yours. Rest, hydrate. There will be as much chamomile as you require waiting when you return. Logan." Her throat tightened. She lifted the second card. "Dear Evelyn, board meeting postponed 48 hours. I told them our chief morale officer was indisposed. That is you. Rest easy. P.S. June's shift remains secure. LP." A laugh escaped, abrupt and thankful, setting off a polite beep from the monitor. She pressed a hand to her sternum until the rhythm steadied. The third card contained a haiku. "Dust cloth in your hand. Swept more than glass found a soul. Mine loose on the floor." She let the paper fall to her lap and closed her eyes. How strange to be seen so completely in so little time. The door clicked open. June entered, bundled in her fleece robe. Feverish cheeks flushed lavender. Behind her shuffled 2 lanky teens, Tobias and Leela, each carrying a vase of supermarket daisies. "Mom," June whispered, voice raw, "you gave me the scare of my life." Evelyn tried for humor. "Role reversal, darling. I figured you deserved the experience." Tobias placed the flowers on the sill. "Nana, Uncle Andrew says you re-trending on Twitter." "Trending?" Evelyn sputtered. Leela nodded, thumbs flying on her phone. "Some reporter caught word that the Quantum Works janitorial hero is in the hospital. People love a wholesome underdog." Evelyn groaned softly. "I didn't sign up for hashtags." June curled onto the bedside chair. "I spoke to Logan Price." At his name, the room brightened, if only in Evelyn's imagination. "He called this morning," June continued. "Apologized for keeping you late. Sent his private driver to bring us here." Evelyn shook her head in disbelief. "The man runs an empire." "Apparently your pep talks trump fiscal quarters," June said, half amused, half awed. A nurse arrived to take vitals. As she recorded numbers, June fished a folded paper from her pocket. "He also emailed these results from cardiology. Minor atrial fibrillation, but no permanent damage. They want you on beta blockers and rest. No overnights with mops." Evelyn exhaled. "There goes my glittering custodial career." "We'll manage," June assured. "Logan S. offered me paid sick leave. And a temporary desk job once I recover." Evelyn's brow arched. "Desk job?" "They need someone in the Executive Resource Center. Filing, ordering supplies, daytime shifts." The implication settled. No more grueling nights, more time with her children. Enough income to breathe. Gratitude washed through Evelyn like warm milk. The nurse departed, promising breakfast. June's kids took that as their cue to fetch vending matcha and hot chocolate. When they left, June clasped her mother's hand. "Did you know I almost lost the house last month?" Evelyn stilled. "You told me we were tight but safe." "I lied, pride and all." June's voice cracked. "If you hadn't shown up at work. And if Mr. Price hadn't noticed." "Hush," Evelyn said, running her thumb over June's knuckles. "We can read what ifs. They read blank pages." June smiled tearfully, still the librarian. A commotion rose in the hall, heavy footfalls, hushed instructions. Then a bouquet the size of a toddler preceded Logan Price into the room. He wore jeans and a navy sweater, power muted by concern. He hesitated at the threshold, eyes flicking between mother and daughter. "May I?" June rose. "Of course. I'll check on the kids." She slipped past him, sending a grateful nod. Logan placed the lavish arrangement on a side table already crowded with daisies. "Overkill, I know. Turns out I am terrible at flower math." Evelyn chuckled. "They re lovely, though if I keep them all, the nurses will need machetes." He pulled the visitor chair closer. "Permission to sit?" "Granted, Mr. Price." Logan. He studied her color. "How is your heart?" "Stubborn." "Good." He exhaled. "I be at meeting stall. Servers crash, stocks plummet, but the thought of losing you," his voice faltered, "frightened me." Warmth stirred in her cheeks. "We barely know each other. Some people we meet feel inevitable." He gave a rueful laugh. "Listen to me quoting destiny to a librarian." Evelyn folded her hands. "Libraries taught me the best stories hinge on improbable meetings." He produced another note card, nervously twisting it. "I wrote earlier, but talking feels better." She nodded. "My mother died when I was 12, he began, eyes fixed on a speck of dust. Dad grieved by building taller towers. I coped by reading historical sagas. Myths, anything where perseverance turned pain into progress. When you walked into my office, you were every librarian I ever clung to, alive and in full technicolor." Evelyn listened, heart ticking steady. "You saw me," he continued, "not my net worth, not my headlines. You scolded me for caffeine." His smile tilted. "You reminded me I am human." She reached, touched his wrist. "You reminded me I still matter outside my family." Silence, tender but comfortable. Logan cleared his throat. "I have an idea. Doctors advise 6 weeks of light duty. What if we make you Quantum Works community story steward, curate a small employee library, host lunchtime readings, maybe record podcasts for our wellness portal? Salary, benefits, zero heavy lifting." Her breath hitched. That is beyond generosity. It is an investment. He shrugged. Our culture needs bedrock. Evelyn considered the proposal. Books instead of bleach. Conversations instead of corridors. It sounded like home disguised as work. I accept provisionally. Name the provision. That you call me Evelyn, not Mrs. Grant. He grinned. Deal. She gestured at the fountain pen from the envelope. And what is this? A Mont Blanc heritage. Dada's last gift before the stroke. He believed in ink over email. She tried to return it, but he stopped her. I want the person who rescued my merger papers to have it. Think of it as our charter. She traced the pen's elegant barrel. Then I'll draft chapter headings worthy of such ink. Footsteps approached June and the teenagers returning, hot chocolates in hand. Logan stood. I'll leave you to family. Before he reached the door, Evelyn called, Logan? He turned, eye shining. Thank you for writing between the lines. He pressed a fist lightly to his heart and slipped out. A billionaire reduced, no, elevated to a man willing to carry vulnerability like a first edition. Edges delicate but precious. That evening, Evelyn discovered a new routine, drafting letters she would never mail. The Mont Blanc glided across hospital stationery as she wrote the first to her late husband, Charles. My dearest, I thought our story ended the day you exhaled your last. But today I learned plot twists arrive in chamomile cups and unexpected friendships. If you are shelving volumes in some celestial library, make room for a sequel. Luffy. The second letter, to herself at age 25, cautioned patience. The third, addressed simply to whom it may inspire, chronicled the moment she saved a merger by chasing a sheet of paper. And finally, though she would never admit the flutter it caused, she penned a fourth. Dear Logan, you wield skyscrapers, I wield stories. Perhaps together we can build a place where people climb not for status, but for meaning. Start with chapter 2. Fondly, Evelyn. She tucked the letter into her purse, uncertain if she'd ever hand it to him. Some revelations are like saplings, they require soil, water, and courage in equal measure. Discharge occurred 3 days later. Evelyn exited the hospital in a wheelchair pushed by Tobias. The hum of spring air cool against her cheeks. Across the drop-off lane idled a charcoal sedan. Quantum Works emblem on the door. The driver tipped his cap and opened the rear passenger door. Inside waited a single paperback Jane Austen's Persuasion. A ribbon protruded from page 43, marking a quote highlighted in blue. There could have been no two hearts so open, no taste so similar, no feeling so in unison. A post-it note beneath the ribbon read, Save me a seat at your first lunch or reading. Oh, Evelyn closed the book, heart warm, and looked skyward where early April clouds drifted like blank pages. Somewhere ahead stretched unfamiliar plotlines, risks, yes, but also renewal. She clutched the Mont Blanc, felt the ink's promise within, and whispered to the future, I am ready to write. Logan Price discovered the first clue in the most unassuming of places, an interoffice envelope stamped received 1982. He was rummaging through the neglected storage room behind Quantum Works' marketing suite, hunting for a portable projector when the envelope slipped from a top-shelf carton. The yellowed paper sailed downward, landed at his feet, and slid open just enough to reveal a battered card catalog slip. Call no, 823.912 Ost title Persuasion, due date 5/10/1974, borrower E. M. Kelsey. E. M. Kelsey, not Evelyn Grant, not even close. Logan frowned. Curiosity piqued. He pocketed the slip, thinking little of it until later that evening. When he found himself alone in the staff library Evelyn had begun curating since her return from the hospital. The room, once a windowless nook stacked with outdated technical manuals, now felt like the reading corner of a beloved hometown branch. Calming sage green paint covered the walls. A donated Persian rug muffled footfalls. Row after row of gently used fiction, sorted by era and theme, filled birchwood shelves that still smelled of sawdust and lemon oil. In the corner, a small sign read Librarian Hours, Ask, Borrow, Dream. Evelyn sat behind a repurposed reception desk, cataloging donations. She wore a cardigan the color of ripe peaches, her silver hair twisted neatly at the nape of her neck. When she looked up, the overhead lamp etched gentle shadows beneath her kind eyes. Logan, she greeted, setting aside a battered copy of A Wrinkle in Time. You look like a man who has found a mystery between the stacks. He grinned. She was rarely wrong, pulling the card catalog slip from his pocket. He laid it on the desk. I found this in the storage annex. Care to explain why your initials are on a 40-year-old library card under another surname? For the first time since he'd known her, Evelyn's composure faltered. A flush crept up her neck. She picked up the slip with fragile fingers, tracing the faded ink. I thought these were lost, she whispered. All of them. Logan eased onto the guest stool. All of what? Evelyn closed her eyes, as though summoning a memory too long buried. The Kelsey collection, my greatest pride and my deepest regret. She gestured to 2 mugs on a tray, one steaming, the other cooling. I brewed Earl Grey for us. Sit, and I'll read you a chapter of my own history." He obliged, heart thumping with anticipation. Evelyn Mary Kelsey, she began, was born in 1952 in the sleepy Massachusetts town of Fox Hollow, daughter of Harold and Vivian Kelsey, owners of a second-hand bookstore called Kelsey Company. Books smelled of her childhood ink, glue, dust motes dancing in morning light, while floorboards creaked melodies only she and her brother Samuel understood. At 17, Evelyn's prodigious recall for plots and quotes earned her a full scholarship to Radcliffe, where she double-majored in English literature and information science. There, among Gothic archways and half-dust corridors, she fell in love with two entities at once: the Dewey Decimal System and Charles Grant, a lanky philosophy student whose laugh sounded like rolling thunder softened by distance. They first met when Charles spilled black coffee over Evelyn's annotated copy of Persuasion in Lamont Library. Mortified, he insisted on replacing it. She insisted on forgiveness. An entire discussion later of Austin's moral irony, of the symbolism of spilled coffee. They realized hours had passed, and the library lights had dimmed for closing. The janitor politely shooed them out. "Love is rarely quiet," Evelyn told Logan, taking a sip of tea. "But ours began with a whispered apology." By 1974, Evelyn graduated summa cum laude, engaged to Charles, and accepted into a competitive archivist internship at the Library of Congress. Yet life, mischievous as ever, flipped her script. Samuel died in a car accident that July, and her parents, shattered, strapped with medical bills, had to sell Kelsey Company. The buyer promised to keep the name but secretly gutted the shop a year later, turning it into a boutique selling imported soaps. Evelyn forfeited Washington to stay in Fox Hollow. She and Charles married in a small ceremony beneath the cracked stained glass window of St. Agatha's, the same church where Samuel's funeral had echoed weeks earlier. Between grief and hope, the vows felt fragile yet fierce. They moved into a one-bedroom apartment above the last remaining independent hardware store, and Evelyn took a librarian post at Oak Hill Public, a few towns away, 40 cents less an hour than the city branch, but close enough to help her parents heal. She poured herself into building what patrons soon called the Kelsey Collection, a trove of rare first editions and handwritten author letters saved from her parents' sales stock. Each title had a checkout card marked E.M. Kelsey in neat blue ink, signifying her private promise one day she would transform the sleepy library into a literary sanctuary. But life demanded new chapters. Charles secured a professor position. Evelyn gave birth to June. Medical bills, rent hikes, and aging parents gnawed at savings. Then came 1996, the year Charles suffered a sudden aortic aneurysm during a faculty conference. He died before paramedics arrived. "I remember exactly where I was," Evelyn said, voice trembling, reading Charlotte's Web to a group of sickened gritters. When the principal entered to break the news, the children thought it was part of the story. With widowhood came upheaval. Insurance barely covered funeral costs. The library cut funding. Renovation stalled. To pay for June's braces, Evelyn sold most of the Kelsey collection to private collectors. The card slips remained, ghosts of a dream. She tucked them into an envelope labeled "Received 1982," her own secret archive of what once was. When Oak Hill Public announced layoffs in 2007, she accepted early retirement. "My career ended on a Tuesday quietly, like someone closing a book mid-sentence," she said. She took odd jobs tutoring, indexing church bulletins, eventually night janitor shifts when June's single-parent budget buckled under college tuition. "I told myself stories in my head while I scrubbed floors," she confessed, eyes glistening. "That's how you found me." Logan, mid-chapter of an unfinished manuscript. Logan listened, equal parts heartbreak and admiration tugging at his chest. "Why keep it hidden?" Evelyn smiled wistfully. "Because people see a janitor and decide they've read her. I grew tired of offering footnotes they never sought. I want to read every edition," he answered softly. A modest blush colored her cheeks. "Careful, Mr. CEO. Some volumes carry water stains and dog-eared pages. Those are the best kind." He reached into his satchel, withdrew a slender folder. "You inspired me to trace the fate of your collection. 3 first editions sold to a family foundation in Vermont. 2 autumn letters ended up at a rare book dealer in Seattle." He slid photos across the desk, aged spines nestled behind glass. "With your permission, I'd like to purchase and return them to you." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. "Logan, the cost. 1 fraction of our marketing budget," he dismissed. "Besides, it is not charity. Quantum Works is launching a mentorship hub next quarter. I want the Kelsey Collection reading room to anchor it. Will you cure it?" Tears welled. Yes, she exhaled shackily. "But only if the room includes a corner for staff children. Story hour isn't merely for grown-ups." "Done." He extended his hand across the desk. She grasped it. Their handshake sealing more than a deal. It closed decades of yearning for lost shelves, lost identity, Over the following weeks, Evelyn S. hidden past bloomed into Quantum Works folklore. Pockets of employees began slipping into the library at lunch, eager for what they dubbed Evelyn S. Rewind Reads, sessions where she dissected classics through the lens of modern resilience. Software engineers who once spoke strictly in code found themselves quoting Dickinson during stand-ups. Marketing interns debated whether Gatsby's green light mirrored today's startup culture. Evelyn, meanwhile, embraced technology she'd one-eyed warily. Logan assigned a use team to design a digital archive where employees could scan refit badges and browse her annotated summaries. She recorded short podcast episodes, her voice warm as flannel, offering literary life hacks. Mary Shelley on imposter syndrome, Steinbeck on economic empathy, Angelou on intercessional courage. One Wednesday, as rain drummed the rooftop garden, Logan joined 20 staffers squeezed on beanbags for her segment plot twists and pivot tables. She opened with a story of losing her brother, pivoting into how tragedy refines purpose. The room held its breath, some wiping eyes. Logan observed her ease, the gravitational pull she possessed, and realized she'd accomplished in 2 months what multiple consultants had not. She dehumanized the halls of Quantum Works. After this session, he approached. We found 2 more titles from your collection, a signed Sappho translation and a Kipling. Courier delivers Friday. Her joy lit the space brighter than fluorescent bulbs. Charles adored Kipling. He'd drum his fingers reciting If When June Fussed at Night. Tell me more about him, Logan urged. They settled at a small bistro table with mint tea. She described Charles's penchant for marginalia, how he'd doodle tiny umbrellas during nihilism lectures, how he believed philosophy could be taught through gardening metaphors, how he once painted their ceiling sky blue so June would dream fearless. Logan listened, envious of a love so textured. Have you ever married? She asked gently. He shook his head. Work has been my partner, but listening to you, I realized spreadsheets make poor storytellers. Their eyes lingered, acknowledging a tenderness blooming, muted, respectful, new. That night, Logan called his executive coach, canceled 3 networking dinners, and instead drafted a 5-year humanity heritage plan for Quantum Works, at its core honoring hidden pasts. Every employee, from intern to VP, would receive an annual origin interview where they could share background, passions, and unsung skills. A volunteer editorial board, Evelyn at helm, would compile these narratives into a digital compendium titled Unshelved. He unveiled the initiative during a quarterly town hall. When the slide bearing Evelyn's portrait appeared, thunderous applause erupted. She rose, cheeks crimson, and gave a short, poised speech. Stories converge like rivers, they carve new valleys of understanding. Thank you for letting mine join yours. In the afterglow, Per outlets pursued the angle. Tech Titan elevates janitor to chief story steward. But Evelyn insisted on balanced coverage, mentioned every custodian's name. She told the journalist, our brooms kept those servers cool long before my library warmed hearts. Spring folded into summer. The mentorship hub, now christened the Kelsey Center, took shape on the 15th floor. Walls paneled in reclaimed bookstore oak, ceiling mural replicating Charles's sky blue paint, and a children's nook furnished with beanbag planets. The grand opening loomed, excitement crackling like static. One afternoon, while Evelyn reviewed catalog entries, she received an unexpected call. The hardware store owner from Fox Hollow, Mr. Orlando, was retiring and clearing the attic above his shop, the apartment where she and Charles had begun married life. I found 3 crates labeled EKG, he said, old journals, letters, even a phonograph. They were yours if you want them. Logan immediately dispatched a driver. That evening, in the quiet hush of the nearly completed Kelsey Center, Evelyn opened the dusty crates alongside him. Each artifact breathed memory: Charles's annotated lecture notes, Samuel's spinal of Simon Garfunkel, Baby June's knitted hat, and wrapped in tissue the last unsold volume of her parents' bookstore 1775 edition of Johnson's dictionary. Trembling, she traced its cracked spine. Logan rested a hand on her shoulder. We'll build a special case. She turned to him, gratitude shimmering. Without thinking, she placed her hand over his. Their fingers interlaced, brief, tender, significant. Logan, she murmured, I spent years scrubbing other people's footprints from marble, thinking the past was a stain to erase. You've shown me it as a mosaic to preserve. He swallowed. And you've shown me I am allowed to write chapters beyond quarterly earnings. The air quivered with possibility, equal parts reverence and budding affection. But instead of rushing forward, they let the moment rest, like a bookmark, saving the spot until each was ready to read aloud. A week before the Kelsey Center's launch, Evelyn stood alone in the space at dusk. Sunlight filtered through glass, illuminating rows of reclaimed volumes. She ran her hand along the spines. whisper naming them like old friends returned. Pride unfurled in her chest, complex, bittersweet, hidden past now displayed. She felt vulnerable but also complete. From behind she heard soft footsteps. Logan, carrying 2 lattes. Permission to interrupt your reverie? She turned, smiling. Always. He handed her a drink. Vanilla oat milk. Consultant says it reduces cortisol. Delicious placebos count, she teased. They strolled between shelves, sipping quietly. Logan paused at the display case housing Johnson's dictionary. In academia they call this provenance, the story of how a work travels through owners. And people call it life, she replied. He cleared his throat, nervous. I hope you know you read more to me than chief story steward. Evelyn's heart thudded softly. You read more than my benefactor. He exhaled, relief blooming. Then let us promise something, we'll let this grow at its own pace. No press releases. No gossip columns, just pages turning. She extended her pinky, a pinky oath. Librarian approved. He hooked his with hers, signed. On the morning of the grand opening, employees flooded the Kelsey Center. Eyes bright, phones raised. Evelyn cut the ribbon alongside Logan and June, now thriving in her desk role. Cheeks rosier, mortgage current. Tobias and Leela handed out bookmarks shaped like hummingbirds, honoring their grandmother's brooch. A string quartet played Vivaldi's Spring, notes swirling like freshly printed ink. Reporters asked Evelyn how it felt to reclaim her hidden past. She quoted Whitman, I am large, I contain multitudes. Cameras clicked. Social media lit up. But her gaze sought Logan across the crowd. He raised his teacup in silent salute. She answered with a smile that promised many volumes yet unwritten. As dusk settled, and the last visitors drifted away, Logan and Evelyn remained beneath the library as soft lights. Between them lay the 1775 dictionary, open to the word resurgent. The definition read, rising again, renewed, growing stronger after a decline. Seems appropriate, he murmured. Very, she agreed. Outside, city lights shimmered. Inside, 2 souls once separated by social strata and circumstance found common ground among cloth-bound spines and shared vulnerabilities. Evelyn's hidden past was no longer hidden, it had become the prologue to something new. And as they closed the dictionary, Logan whispered, chapter next? She replied, voice steady as well-loved pages, let us co-author. Logan Price had never believed in life to hovers, in the rarefied air of venture capital and quarterly earnings. Every mistake left an ink smudge on the record, you learned to write around it. Never through it. But the night before Quantum Works' annual shareholder summit, a spectacle that would stream live to 5 continents, he lay awake in his penthouse apartment, staring at city lights and admitting the unthinkable. Everything he was about to present fell hollow. At 2 in the morning he padded barefoot to the kitchen, brewed miso broth, and scrolled aimlessly through the employee portal. Icons for sales forecasts and patent filings lined the screen, yet his cursor hovered over a different tile, unshelved origin stories. Evelyn's brainchild, he clicked. A random story loaded Cullen from cybersecurity, recalling the civil war that forced his family from Aleppo, how coding and internet cafes kept him sane. Another click, Grace in logistics, describing the day she donated a kidney to her sister and almost lost her job for missing shifts. Threads of vulnerability, courage, resilience, each narrative hummed like low music, steady and human. Logan felt something unfamiliar tighten behind his ribs, envy. His own bio on the portal was sterile: undergrad KPA, IPO milestones, yacht race victories. What would he write if asked for truth? That he traded intimacy for accolades? That his father's death propelled him up skyscrapers instead of into therapy? That for all his public clout he was privately starving for a sense of tribe? He shut the laptop and paced. Tomorrow he would stand on a stage the size of a tennis court, unveil a billion-dollar AI acquisition, and promise exponential growth. Yet the prospect of applause sounded like thunder with no rain or noise, no nourishment. The realization rattled him so hard he typed a message on his phone without thinking. Draft to Evelyn G. Do you ever wish you could tear up your speech cards and start over, Al? It was 2:43 a.m. He hovered above send, thumb trembling. Ridiculous, she was 71, she needed sleep, not existential texts. But he learned from her that candor can be its own night light. He tapped send. He didn't expect a reply, but 3 minutes later the phone buzzed. From Evelyn G. First editions are precious precisely because you can rewrite them. But you can issue a second printing with revisions. Meet for tea at dawn. He exhaled, smiled into the dark, and typed yes. Sunrise turned the river rose gold as Logan jogged across Beacon Street toward the Kelsey Center. Boston was still yawning, delivery trucks hissed along curbs, and church bells rehearsed faintly for the 7 o'clock chime. Inside the building, Cleaning crews vacuumed lobby carpets, unaware their nominal boss had entered in running shoes and a worn college hoodies. The library door was ajar. Evelyn stood on a stool, pinning a banner that read Week of Wonder Staff Story Festival. She wore sensible loafers and a midnight blue scarf embroidered with tiny silver constellations. Seeing him, she stepped down carefully, the stool wobbling. Logan shot forward, steadying her elbow. Still rescuing Zeus, I see, she teased. He blushed. I should hire you a ladder. You already did. I lent it to facilities Calvin needed to change light bulbs. She gestured to a kettle steaming on the circulation desk, chamomile and toast. Come tell me which ghosts kept you pacing. They settled at a small round table by the window. Logan recounted his sleepless night, the sterile summit slides, the achy cold and tea name, the sudden envy of Cullidas' raw honesty. As he spoke, Evelyn listened the way librarians absorb confessions without flinch or hurry. When he finished, she buttered her toast and asked, what would your summit keynote sound like if it were an unshelved story? He blinked. No one had ever invited him to narrate his own frailty on a stage built for market confidence. Evelyn continued, the board wants growth metrics, investors crave vision, but humans buy possibility only when they glimpse humanity behind it. Logan toyed with his mug. My peer team would revolt. Then consider it an act of insurgent empathy, she said, eyes twinkling. A laugh broke from him, surprised, liberating. You re-advising me to detonate the script hours before go time? Revise, not detonate, she corrected. Keep the data, but weave in the reason you bothered to collect it. He leaned back, imagining the marble auditorium, the teleprompter, the global webcast. Could he confess to shareholders that a 71-year-old former janitor reminded him why his company existed? That profits without purpose felt like blank pages. The idea terrified him and filled him with electric calm. Walk with me, he said, suddenly decisive. They rode the elevator to the 38th floor, where a viewing deck overlooked the Charles River. The space was cluttered with whiteboards and mock-ups for the upcoming AI product line Oriole, Finch, Falcon Avian codenames symbolizing speed, yet amid the wingspan drawings and algorithm matrices, Logan saw no sketch of the humans these tools would augment. Just revenue curves. My father used to recite an equation, Logan said, hands in pockets. Value, utility, compassion. He said you golden T-scale utility without scaling compassion too. Or the value collapsed. He gestured at the drawings. I lost the second variable. Evelyn studied the prototype, sleek, brilliant, but emotionally sterile. Then added back. Not tomorrow, today. Write it into your keynote. Logan inhaled. Would you help me? Evelyn chuckled. Only if you promise to credit a meddling librarian. Deal. They commandeered a glass conference room. Evelyn fetched colored markers. Logan opened PowerPoint. Line by line they dissected the original speech. Graph stayed, bullet points shrank. Into the void they inserted story-colored as cybersecurity fixes that protected refugee nonprofits. Grace S. logistics route that saved fuel and funded her sister's post-op care. Evelyn S. own arc from janitor to story steward, with each anecdote. The valuation metrics no longer felt boastful but anchored. Logan heard his voice reading the new script aloud and realized it sounded less like a CEO sermon and more like an invitation. At noon the head of communications, Sira Patel, stormed in waving the old draft. Her eyes widened at the marker-splashed whiteboards. We print teleprompter cards in an hour. What is happening? Logan met her gaze calmly. Version 2. It is authentic, it is us. Trust me. Sira scanned the boards, skepticism shifting to intrigue. If you re-serious, we'll need to alert legal and investor relations. These personal vignettes reference employee health histories. Evelyn stepped forward. Each employee gave written consent an hour ago. We asked. She held up signed releases. Sira's brow shot up, impressed. All right, Captain, let us sail. Backstage at the summit that evening, stagehands clipped a mic to Logan's lapel. The auditorium brimmed with analysts, media, employees flown in from 5 countries. Spotlights painted the wood floor icy white. In the green room, Evelyn smoothed the collar of his charcoal suit and tucked a folded card into his pocket. In case nerves nibble, she said. What's written? He asked. A reminder, she whispered and ushered him toward the wings. The MC announced, please welcome Quantum Works CEO Logan Price. Thunderous applause erupted. Logan strode to center stage, blinking against cleat beams. The teleprompter flashed the revised opening, and he began. He spoke of growth, yes, but in the third minute he deviated, pulling the card from his pocket. Before I show you numbers, he said, voice steady, I want to show you Khalid's childhood desk and internet cafe terminal in Aleppo. 15 cents per 30 minutes, where he learned to code during blackouts. On the massive LED screen appeared a photo Khalid had sent that afternoon. Guests traveled the room. Logan continued Grace's kidney donor's story, Evelyn's transformation, how those human stakes shaped the company's products. Each anecdote slid into a chart illustrating how empathy-driven design opened new markets, reduced attrition, doubled stakeholder trust. The board members leaned in, analysts typed furiously. Halfway through, Logan paused. I used to believe success was a skyscraper with my name on top, he confessed. Then a librarian in a borrowed uniform wandered into my office and reminded me that stories, not skylines, anchor us to purpose. Camera operators pivoted to capture Evelyn in the front row. She blushed as applause rippled. He concluded, we will pursue profit, yes, but not as an end, only as a means to fund bigger leaps of human possibility. He clicked the final slide, value, utility, compassion. Underneath, in small letters, Arthur Price, 1945-2018. Silence hung, then rose into a standing ovation. Logan exhaled, eyes wet, and bowed his head. Post-keynote, media outlets exploded. Tech titan pivots to empathy capitalism. QuantumWorks CEO gets personal shares, tears. Double stock. From janitor to muse, the Evelyn effect. Share price in after horse trading ticked upward, ironically rewarding the very vulnerability that corporate wisdom once deemed risky. But Logan's victory lap was brief. At 10 p.m., as he greeted investors in the mezzanine, security chief Andrea Rivas approached. Brown knitted, need a word. She led him to a side corridor, produced a tablet showing a hacker forum threat, Operation Cage Bird leak, QuantumWorks customer data, midnight est. The Post claimed infiltration of the new AI servers potentially catastrophic. Logan's stomach dropped. Source verified? 50-50, Andrea said, but given scale we should activate War Room. He nodded, already striding toward elevators. On the descent he texted Evelyn, emergency. Might miss after party. She replied instantly, understood. Strengthen chapters. The war room on 32 buzzed like a trapped hornet. Screen streamed network logs. Engineers barked queries, legal drafted breach notifications just in case. Culled, bleary-eyed, ran packet traces. At 11:07 p.m., he isolated an anomaly, outbound traffic disguised as maintenance pings. It is siphoning encrypted payloads, he said. Origin IP spoofed inside our own Boston subnet. Logan's jaw clenched. Insider threat. He ordered badge logs cross-checked. But Culled already had a hunch. Access token matches a vendor subcontractor, Data Next Consulting. They installed backup servers last week. Minutes later, CCTV footage confirmed a Data Next engineer named Milo Vargas slipped into the AI cage at 9 p.m. Inserted a USB device. Find him, Logan said, pulse pounding. Security located Milo leaving via garage. Police intercepted, but the USB had already triggered a slow burn exfiltration set to detonate at midnight. The only failsafe, manually sever fiber loop links in the subterranean data vault. Time 11:41 p.m. Logan ordered remote shutdown, but encryption locks blocked commands. We have to pull the cable physically, Culled said. Andrea hesitated. Sub-basement corridor is under renovation, no lighting, scaffold hazards. I am going, Logan declared. He Culled, and Andrea descended freight elevators to levels 3. Darkness swallowed them. Emergency lanterns cast eerie cones on cement walls. They navigated past stacked server crates to the vault door. Andrea keyed, override locks groaned open. Inside, chilled air and blue lights greeted them. Rack 24 hosted the Uplink panel. Glowing red countdown 016. Culled vaulted cable conduits, reached the panel. But the quick release levers were bolted. Need torque driver. Andrea rummaged her belt, nothing. Logan's gaze snapped to a maintenance card outside the vault. He sprinted, feet skidding, seized a metal pry bar. As he re-entered, his foot snagged a coil, sending him sprawling onto the raised floor grid. Pain shot through his ankle, but he crawled to Culled, jammed the bar under the lever, and heaved. Metal screeched. With a final grunt, the connector ripped free. The red countdown flickered, froze at 0:07, then vanished. Silence, then their collective exhale fogged the aisle. Above ground, network graphs returned to baseline. Crisis averted. Logan sank against a rack. Adrenaline crashing, ankle throbbing. Culled clapped his shoulder. Second chance, boss. Logan managed a breathless laugh, borrowed from your cafe days. It was 1 a.m. when Logan limped into the Kelsey Center. Exhaustion and relief dueling. He found Evelyn asleep in an armchair, cardigan draped like a quilt. On the table beside her sat a teapot, steam long gone, and an open book, Persuasion, Chapter 15. She waited. He eased onto the adjacent sofa, pain shooting up his ankle. The sound stirred her. She blinked, awake. You hurt. Minor sprain, he whispered. He recounted the breach scare, the vault dash, the saved data. She listened, eyes wide yet calm. You learned something tonight, she said when he finished. That fiber cables hate me? She smiled gently. That leadership isn't measured by the heights you climb, but by the depths you were willing to descend for others. Logan's throat tightened. I thought the keynote was my second chance. But the universe wanted a practical exam. She reached over, squeezed his hand. You passed. In the hush of shelves and amber lamps, an undeniable closeness bloomed. Logan sensed gravity bending between them, not inappropriate, but profound. He cleared his throat. Evelyn, I don't want to blur boundaries, yet every time we talk I feel at home. Her gaze softened, reflecting the same swirl of wonder and caution. Home is where stories overlap, she murmured. Ours overlap richly, the rest we'll map carefully. He exhaled, relief mingling with possibility. May I see you outside work? A Sunday walk along the river? She considered, then nodded, with two conditions: daylight hours and hot chocolate after. He grinned, done. The following morning tabloids hailed the keynote. No one knew the breach drama. Internal teams patched vulnerabilities. Milo faced charges. Quantum Works stock opened up 5%. Investors rewarded resilience as much as revenue. Logan, ankle bandaged, attended earnings calls from his office. Mid-afternoon, he received a system notification: an unshelved story pending approval. Title: The CEO's Second Chance. Author Evelyn Grant. He opened it. The piece narrated last night from sleepless doubts to vault heroics told through third person. Respectful yet candid. It ended. Second chances are not resets, they are revisions that keep original ink yet invite fresh annotations. Logan Price chose annotation over erasure. May we all. He hit approve, heart pounding. Within minutes, likes and comments flooded. Employees felt seen, inspired. One wrote, if the suet can bleed and still lead, so can I. Logan stood, hobbled to the window. Below, the city pulsed with lunchtime bustle. Above, clouds drifted like open pages. He thought of his father's equation. Of the librarian who turned his empire into a library. Of the cable he deranged at 7 seconds to midnight. Second chance indeed. His phone buzzed. A calendar invite from Evelyn. Sunday 10 a.m. Riverwalk Cocoa. Weather forecast brisk, clear, hopeful. He accepted, smiling. For the first time in years, Logan Price closed his laptop early, grabbed his coat, and left the building without a single document to review. Outside, sunlight shimmered off glass towers. He inhaled crisp air that tasted like page one. Starting now, his story would never again exclude the chapters that made him human. 3 weeks after Logan Price's headline-making keynote, Quantum Works' glass facade shimmered like a placid lake. But inside the suet the water turned. Rumors of an activist investor accrued the way storm clouds thicken small murmurs. Dismissible at first, until the air itself tastes like metal. It began with a fax. Yes, an actual fax delivered to the board secretary at 6:17 a.m. Marked confidential. The sender: Armitage Capital, a hedge fund famous for dismantling bloated empathy experiments in Fortune 500 companies. In 2 crisp pages they accused Quantum Works of mission drift, citing the CEO as sentimental diversions and unvetted personnel elevation. Translation: the librarian and her library. By 10 a.m., the 11 board directors convened an emergency session on the 52nd floor. Sunlight spilled across mahogany, yet tension cast longer shadows. At the head sat Beatrice Loring, chairwoman. 72, flinty-eyed, veteran of 6 proxy battles. She rapped a water glass with her knuckle. We need clear air before tomorrow's earnings call. Whispers undermine confidence. To Logan's left, CFO Mitchell Ho adjusted his cufflinks, immaculate as always. He spoke first. Armitage owns 4.2% of outstanding shares. They want cost-cutting, asset divestiture, and a reassessment of auxiliary programs code for shutting the Kelsey Center. He slid a packet of graphs forward. They'll escalate if we don't preempt. Across the table, Dr. Margot Chen, head of the governance committee, flipped through the packet. Our stock is up 9% since Logan's keynote. Hardly grounds for mutiny. Mitchell's tone cooled. Temporary bump. Sentiment fades, fundamentals endure. He lifted his eyes to Logan. Shareholders didn't authorize a philanthropic turn. Logan inhaled slowly. He'd expected resistance. Change always invites it, but the speed rattled him. The Kelsey Center isn't philanthropic, it is strategic cultural infrastructure supporting retention and innovation. Beatrice interlaced manicured fingers. Explain why a reading room outperforms additional RD spend. Instead of charts, Logan summoned Cullet's metrics: 34% decrease in voluntary turnover among engineering teams who attended story sessions. A 40% reduction in time to deployment due to cross-department empathy training. Narrative literacy is cognitive agility. He concluded, our people code better when they understand context. An uneasy hush. Some directors nodded, others exchanged skeptical glances. Mitchell cleared his throat. That is soft data. Armitage will weaponize it as woke waste. We could placate them, scale back the library, reassign Mrs. Grant to a ceremonial role. Logan's jaw tightened. He thought of Evelyn archiving Cullet's war-zone childhood photographs, of interns reading Steinbeck aloud, of the hush in the library where ambition slowed to let meaning catch up. Ceremonial, not on his watch. He raised his voice, calm yet resonant. If we dismantle what makes us human, we'll become another commodity shop chasing the lowest bid. Armitage preys on that myopia. We want to feed them. Beatrice regarded him, unreadable. Principles are admirable, but fiduciary duty is enforceable. She signaled to the secretary. A projector screen floated down spreadsheets populated row after row potential savings if the Kelsey Center closed. If Evelyn's salary and the library's budget were reallocated. The number 7 million glowed like a temptation. Pocket change against our revenue, Logan said. Symbolism, Logan Mitchell pressed. Activist funds ignite revolts over symbolism. The debate spiraled. Risk models, precedent cases, potential media spin. Logan felt the room tilt, logic overshadowed by fear of headlines. In that moment he understood winning required more than data. It required a story stronger than theirs. He rose, adjourned for 1 hour. Meet me in the Kelsey Center. Beatrice arched an eyebrow. Excuse me? Consider it due diligence. He gathered his folder and walked out, refusing further debate. After a beat of stunned silence, chairs scraped back. Directors followed. The elevator descended. Board members murmured curiosity, annoyance, derision. Logan's heart pounded, but resolve steadied him. In the lobby he texted Evelyn. Bringing company. Need chapter proof. Her reply: shells ready. Tea steeping. When the board entered the Kelsey Center, they encountered more than books. A sign on an easel read Staff Story Festival Live Exhibit. Against one wall hung 50 portrait photographs, each paired with a recode. Under soft track lighting, employees manned tiny stations, colored demonstrating code visualizations. Grace displaying logistic route maps, juniors from product design sharing 3D printed braille keyboard overlays inspired by Evelyn's accessibility tutorials. A hush fell. It wasn't a library, it was a living organism pulsing with narrative. Evelyn stood near the Jane Austen alcove, cardigan sleeves rolled, greeting directors by name. She dememorized faces from corporate newsletters. She offered Beatrice a porcelain cup. Earl Grey, loose leaf, helps clarity. The formidable chairwoman blinked, accepted. Logan called attention. Colleagues, you've asked for impact beyond spreadsheets. Experience it. He gestured and stories began. Khaled described how reading Camus with a marketing associate sparked an algorithmic breakthrough that saved $2 million in server costs. Grace recounted a Faulkner discussion that inspired her to restructure warehouse shifts, cutting accidents by 17%. A junior attester named Priya shared how Evelyn's lunchhour workshop on epistolary novels taught her to write clearer bug reports, elevating her from contractor to full-time staff. Directors drifted, scanning her codes. Each triggered a short video of employees connecting literature to work solutions. Ending with Roy metrics verified by finance, Logan had quietly established a narrative analytics unit the week prior, data couched in story underpinned by data. Beatrice paused before Samuel's vinyl corner, where Tobias, Evelyn's grandson, demoed an app converting analog audio into searchable text, concept born after discovering his late granduncle's Simon Garfunkel record. The prototype promised to streamline the company's vast archive of legacy conference calls, previously unindexed. Projected savings? Beatrice asked. $700,000 annually, Tobias answered, voice steady. Her brows lifted imperceptibly. Evelyn approached Mitchell, who lingered at the new acquisition shelf. She handed him a slim volume, How to Measure Anything. Annotated. You'll all like page 62, she said. He flipped, highlighted, not everything that matters can be measured, but everything that matters can inform measurement. Beneath, Evelyn's note, asset is also attitude. Mitchell swallowed, throat working. It dawned on him that the board had considered Evelyn a cost center. She saw herself as culture capital yielding intangible dividends. After 40 minutes, Logan clapped for attention. Directors circled near a low stage. Behind him projected a slide, value, utility, compassion. Beneath, fresh figures, quarterly productivity up 8%. Employee driven patents filed record high. Armitage equates compassion with weakness, he said, but as you witnessed, compassion scales utility. Dismantling the Kelsey Center would erase competitive advantage we haven't yet fully quantified. He nodded to Evelyn, who stepped forward holding a sealed envelope. Inside are 60 personal letters from staff, addressed to each of you, she said. Read them privately. Know the stakes. Beatrice accepted the stack. Silence thickened, reverent. Logan concluded, we can sell our soul for a temporary lift in share price, or we can nurture it and outperform skeptics long term. My proposal: issue a public statement reaffirming our story-driven innovation framework, inviting shareholders to an open house here next quarter. We convert critics through evidence, not retreat. Directors eyed one another. Margot spoke first, I second. She turned to Beatrice. Madam Chair, call the vote. Beatrice looked down at her teacup, empty now, yet warmth lingered. She remembered the fledgling hardware archive, the quiet Roy behind each portrait, the unexpected dignity of being offered tea by the very woman the media dubbed janitor turned news. She raised her hand, all in favor of endorsing the CEO's framework and rejecting Armitage's cost-cutting demand. Hands lifted 8, 9, 10. Finally Mitchell S. Unanimous. Relief swept the room in a hush, followed by applause not thunderous, but earnest. Logan exhaled, shoulders dropping. He sought Evelyn's gaze. She offered a subtle nod, as if shelving a satisfactory return date. The board filed out, but Beatrice lingered. She approached Evelyn near a display case housing the 1775 Johnson S. Dictionary. My late husband, Beatrice said quietly, was a linguistics professor. He adored Johnson. Her voice wavered, uncharacteristic vulnerability. I've not visited his study since he passed. Today may change that. Evelyn touched her arm gently. Grief is a dictionary. All the old words appear with new meanings. Take the time you need to relearn them. Moisture glistened in Beatrice's eyes. She nodded, composed herself, then left. That night the board issued a communique. Quantum Works affirms its commitment to story-driven innovation, recognizing narrative literacy as a core asset. Armitage Capital's press release came hours later, accusing the company of esoteric humanist drift, but the market shrugged. Quantum Works stock nudged higher on news of low turnover and patent surge. In the Kelsey Center, lights dimmed. Evelyn shelved new donations. Logan entered, loosened tie, exhaustion and triumph commingling. She handed him a mug of rooibos chai. You rewrote the boardroom, she said. We rewrote, he corrected. They sat on the window bench overlooking the river. Traffic glittered like fireflies. Logan massaged his temples. I almost lost. Fear is persuasive. Evelyn sipped tea. Fear whispers because it can. Tea project. Vision speaks because it must be heard. He chuckled softly. Do you script these? Decades of story time, she teased. A comfortable silence. Logan's thoughts drifted to Sunday walks, to possibility. At last he said, I am due in San Francisco next week. Investor Roadshow. Will you join? Let a Meyer story session for analysts? Her brows rose. They all expect a bidder, not Emily Dickinson. All the more reason, he said. They need to hear the heartbeat behind the numbers. She considered, then nodded. Very well, but only if we visit City Lights bookstore afterward. Done. He stood, offered his hand. She took it, rising slowly. For a breath their palms lingered, platonic yet charged. Their eyes met, soft question hovering. Not tonight, the gaze said. Soon. He released her hand reluctantly, whispered good night, and left. Evelyn exhaled, heart fluttering like pages in breeze. She turned off lamps one by one until only the dictionary's case glowed. Later, alone in his office, Logan opened one of the board letters Evelyn had compiled. It was from Mitchell, the CFO, who had wavered. Inside, Mitchell confessed how his mother, an immigrant housekeeper, had died before seeing him graduate, how Evelyn's rise made him grieve anew and hope anew. I voted yes because numbers must honor the people who scrubbed floors so we could read them, it ended. Logan folded the letter carefully, eyes damp. He gazed at the city, marveling whispers when heated become chorus. Tomorrow would bring fresh battles, Armitage, market whims, deadlines, but tonight the boardroom was quiet. Its echo filled not with fear but with story. Snow flurried against the courthouse steps like shreds of parchment, wind whipping them into brief eddies before plastering wet to stone. Inside Suffolk County Superior Court, a fluorescent hush settled over rows of oak benches as spectators removed wool coats, shook off February cold, and craned their necks toward the well. Reporters occupied an entire pew, notebooks poised, one live stream camera winked an unblinking red eye. The docket name glared from digital screens. Datnex Consulting v. Quantum Works Technologies. At stake $14 million in alleged breach of contract damages and, unofficially, Quantum Works' hard-won narrative of compassion-driven culture. Logan Price adjusted the knot of his charcoal tie, a tie Evelyn had chosen that morning. Murmuring confidence without arrogance, he sat at counsel table beside late attorney Camille Duarte, whose reputation for courtroom poise was rivaled only by her fondness for origami cranes. 3 tiny paper birds perched near her legal pad, calm amidst chaos. Behind the bar, clusters of Quantum Works employees packed the gallery. Grace, Khaled, June, Tobias, Leela, each wearing discreet silver pins shaped like open books. Front row, Evelyn Grant clasped a thermos of lemon tea, cheeks pale but eyes steady. She felt the weight of generational stakes if Datnex prevailed. Armitage Capital would seize the moment to brand Quantum Works' human entry pivot as reckless. Opposite sat Datnex CEO Victor Sloan, flanked by sleek attorneys in matching navy. Victor's angular jaw ticked rhythmically, a metronome of disdain. He had once courted Quantum Works, touting cybersecurity white chat specialists. The breach proved otherwise, and when Logan terminated the contract and pressed charges, Victor countersued wrongful termination, reputational harm, lost revenue from prospective clients. Judge Maribel Ortiz, early 50s with silver-streaked hair and a penchant for no-nonsense rulings, entered. "Be seated," she said, voice like a gavel before the actual gavel. Opening statements began. Camille rose first. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen, this case is simple. Datnex violated the core terms of its security contract, enabling insider Milo Vargas to plant malicious code that nearly exfiltrated gigabytes of private data. Quantum Works exercised its contractual right to immediate termination. Our evidence will show the plaintiff has negligence and bad faith." Victor's counsel, Rhonda Blythe, countered, "We will prove there was no exfiltration, merely a test script misinterpreted by an overzealous CEO seeking scapegoats. Quantum Works defamed Datnex, cancelled payment, and orchestrated a media circus. They owe damages." Murmurs rippled. Judge Ortiz lifted a brow. "Let us proceed with testimony." The prosecution called Khalid first. He approached the stand in a charcoal sweater, posture stiff. Camille led him through credentials, degrees, certifications, refugee story. Then she displayed the server logs Khalid had isolated. Hex digits streamed across monitors while jurors squinted. Khalid translated unauthorized outbound packets, trigger script labeled Edgebird. Rhonda cross-examined with clipped courtesy. "Mr. Al-Najjar, isn't it true the packets you flagged were encrypted? You cannot state with certainty what data, if any, was being transferred." "True," Khalid conceded, "but we traced identical packet sizes to Vargas's previous black chat activities." "Speculation," Rhonda objected. "Sustained," Ortiz said. Khalid exited, jaw tight, but supporters patted his shoulder. Next came Quantum Works physical security chief Andrea Rivas, who detailed the use of device Vargas inserted. On cross, Rhonda tried to paint the device as routine diagnostic. Andrea countered with CCTV stills showing Vargas glancing around nervously before plugging in the universal body language of guilt. Still, jurors remained stone-faced. Camille whispered to Logan, "We need heart, not just code." Logan's gaze slid toward Evelyn. She caught the silent plea and nodded once. After lunch break, Camille called her final witness, Evelyn Grant. Gasps not in the room as script. Reporters typed ferociously. Evelyn approached the stand with deliberate grace, hummingbird brooch glinting under fluorescence. Once sworn, Camille began, "Mrs. Grant, what is your position at Quantum Works?" "I am the story steward and curator of the Kelsey Center." "And prior to that?" Evelyn smiled wryly, "Night janitor." A juror's eyebrows lifted. Camille shifted. "Please describe the night of April 12th, when the breach attempt occurred." Evelyn recounted how she had stayed late organizing donated picture books, how she de-glimpsed Logan and Khalid sprinting past glass walls, how she witnessed Logan return limping, panting. Her voice carried quiet authority. "He looked, pardon me, Your Honor, scared for his people, not for public relations." Camille, why is that relevant? "Because leadership intent matters," Evelyn said, eyes sweeping jurors. "If Datnex's test script had been benign, our CEO wouldn't he risk bodily injury to yank a fiber cable?" Rhonda rose for cross. "Mrs. Grant, with respect, you are neither a cybersecurity expert nor a contract attorney. Why should the court heed your interpretation?" Evelyn folded her hands gently, librarian calm. "Because I am an historian of stories. Patterns reveal motives. When a vendor's engineer operates in shadows, bypasses batch protocols, and prepares an exfiltration script labeled Edgebird, I read that narrative as betrayal." Gasps again. Even Judge Ortiz's lips twitched. Rhonda bristled. "Narratives are subjective. Facts shape them," Evelyn said, "but empathy differs them." Rhonda opened her mouth, then closed it, waved dismissal. No further questions. Camille had a redirect. "Mrs. Grant, what happened after the breach was thwarted?" "Quantum Works doubled security spending," Evelyn answered, "but also doubled mental health resources. Mr. Price believes stress and moral fatigue create vulnerabilities, technical and personal." "Objection irrelevant," Rhonda snapped. "Sustained," Ortiz said mildly, but not before the jury absorbed the ethos. Evelyn stepped down, steady despite tremors in her knees. Logan squeezed her hand as she passed. Datnex mounted its defense expert witnesses, claiming Edgebird was a diagnostic mislabeled due to programmer humor. Spreadsheets showing Datnick's spotless record, emails where Vargas requested clearer guidelines. Yet under Camilla's cross, inconsistencies emerged: missing timestamps, altered log files, a non-disclosure payment to Vargas weeks prior. On day 3, Vargas himself took the stand via subpoena. Pale, stubble-faced, he avoided eye contact with Victor. Camilla's questions were surgical. Eventually, Vargas crumbled. They pressured me, said if I could prove quantum work systems were vulnerable, we'd upsell additional services. I never thought it'd go this far, murmurs. Rhonda's rebuttal fizzled. Perjury loomed if she pushed. Closing arguments, Rhonda insisted on contract technicalities, termination notice windows, vagueness of material breach. She spoke crisply, but even her origami of legalese wouldn't obscure the scent of sabotage. Camille approached the jury rail. No slides, no props, just voice. Trust is not bullet-pointed, it is lived. Quantum Works hired Datnick to safeguard human stories, patient records, refugee journeys, private hopes stored in health apps we power. Datnick gambled with that trust. When called out, they sued to blame the whistle. The law should not reward such recklessness. She bowed slightly, returned to counsel table. Paper cranes watched over her notes like guardians. Jury deliberations lasted 6 hours. At 7:42 p.m., foreman returned verdict for defendant on all counts. Quantum Works owed Datnick nothing. Further, the jury recommended referral of Datnick's leadership to the Department of Justice for conspiracy investigation. Victor Sloan's face cracked. Rhonda's shoulders sagged. Evelyn exhaled a prayer. June hugged her, tears of relief. Camille steadied Logan as adrenaline drained. Judge Ortiz thanked jurors, banged gavel. Case closed, yet repercussions only beginning. Outside, snow had deepened. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust. Logistical chaos parted as Logan and Evelyn emerged, flanked by Camille and Khalid. Reporters shouted, "Mr. Price, comment?" Logan raised a hand. "Tonight's verdict protects not just our company, but every individual whose data tells the story of their life. Integrity won." Another yelled, "Mrs. Grant, how does it feel to influence corporate law?" Evelyn chuckled softly. "Stories have always influenced law. We just shelved a new precedent." Flashbulbs popped. Later, at a quiet bistro lit by candles, the core team gathered. Camille, Khalid, Grace, Andrea, June, Tobias, Leela. Snowflakes feathered the window, steam curled from cocoa mugs. Logan raised a glass of sparkling water. To Camille's brilliance, Khalid's vigilance, Andrea's grit, and Evelyn's narrative compass. Glasses linked. Camille unwrapped a paper crane, revealing red ink along its wings. "Courage's data." She laughed. "My new firm motto." Andrea winked. "Might tattoo it on the security badge scanner." Conversation ebbed to quiet pockets. Logan leaned toward Evelyn. "You were magnificent." She waved dismissively. A librarian's superpower scene setting, yet her cheeks flushed. He hesitated, then produced a small velvet pouch. "I intended this for a calmer day, but perhaps victory qualifies." Inside lay a silver pendant shaped like intertwined quills. "One quill for you, one for me, because our stories keep rewriting each other." Emotion shimmered in her eyes. She touched the pendant, then his hand. "I accept with one edit." "Name it." "That we add a third quill for every person whose story we steward next." He smiled. "Dynamic necklace, done." Midnight approached. Snow ceased, leaving streets hushed. Logan offered Evelyn his arm for the walk to her ride share. Under a street lamp they paused, breath-formed clouds. "Evelyn," he said, voice low, "today you stood not just for me, but for an ecosystem of trust. I care for you beyond professional gratitude." She searched his face, earnest, hesitant. Her reply was gentle. "I care for you too." "Logan, depth doesn't frighten me, but pace deserves respect." He nodded, relieved. "Sunday walk still on?" "Bring extra cocoa," she mused. "February wind exaggerates appetites." They left softly. He guided her into the warmed car, closed the door. As the vehicle pulled away, Evelyn watched him shrink in the rear window, tall figure, coat collar high, pendant pouch tucked in his fist like a promise. She leaned back, heart steady yet fluttering, and whispered a line from her courtroom testimony: "Empathy differs motives." Tonight motives had spoken loud and clear. The city lights blurred, pages turning toward next chapter's legal vindication achieved. But emotional verdict still in deliberation. Somewhere ahead awaited spring buds, river walks, and maybe if edits aligned, a love letter bound by 3 quills. For now victory sufficed. And in the glow of passing street lamps, Evelyn allowed herself one silent epilogue second printings. After all can become collector's editions. March sunlight shimmered on the Charles River as gulls traced lazy loops above the esplanade. Logan kept pace beside Evelyn, her stride measured, scarf fluttering while chilled wind threaded between budding trees. Their Sunday walks had become ritual, motion carrying conversation, conversation carrying possibility. They passed joggers in neon tights, couples steering strollers, a violinist practicing Vivaldi beneath a bridge arch. Evelyn paused to listen, eyes closed. When she opened them, she spoke as if continuing a thought she'd been holding for years. I spent decades repairing torn pages, she said, but never dared imagine I might draft new chapters for others. Logan offered a quiet smile. Then let us imagine out loud. They found an empty bench overlooking water rippling like molten glass. Logan produced a paper folder. On the cover, handwritten blueprint, Kelsey Company Fellowship. Evelyn's brow lifted. You resurrected the bookstore name. More than that, he said, handing her the folder. Inside lay concept sketches, a community hub combining library science internships, tech apprenticeships, and micro grants for employee passion projects. Logo 3 quills interlaced. You told me to add a third quill, he reminded. This fellowship is it. Staff, their families, even retirees, everyone can apply. Evelyn traced the lines, throat thickening, a lattice for dreams. And co-haired by us? Her eyes searched his, tender, cautiously proud. But before words formed, Tobias's ringtone jingled. She answered her grandson wanted advice on a physics project. When she hung up, Logan chuckled, mentorship already in session. They resumed walking. Above them, clouds thudded fast, propelling the day forward. Logan's phone chimed, a reminder, 3 p.m. Site visit. Fox Hollow. He hesitated. Would you accompany me on a small detour? I have a surprise. One hour later, his Tesla coasted down Main Street of Fox Hollow, Massachusetts. Quaint storefronts, antique shop, bakery, barber sat beneath weather-beaten awnings. Evelyn's eyes widened as familiar brickwork emerged, the old bookstore her parents once owned. Its sign long replaced by decorative soap script, but today's scaffolding draped the facade, and a banner read coming soon, Atlas Commons. Evelyn's breath caught. Logan, what? He guided her out of the car. A project manager greeted them. Hard hat under arm. We on schedule, Mr. Price. He handed blueprints. Evelyn saw an interior plan redrawing the soap boutique back into a bookstore with co-working nooks, podcast studio, children's stage, ground floor cafe, second floor community tech lab, third small apartments for visiting fellows. Tears brimmed. She touched faded brick. My father etched a poem behind this wall. We'll preserve it, Logan promised. Your family's ink stays. A gust of memory swept her, Samuel stacking first editions, Vivian humming lullabies among paper dust. She pressed a hand to her chest. This is restorative but extravagant. Not extravagant, he corrected. Redemptive. Quantum Works will lease the top floors. Revenue feeds the fellowship. She exhaled slowly, letting wonder settle like snowflakes on warm ground. Then let us build it together. Over the next week, spring quickened. Evelyn and Logan commuted between Boston and Fox Hollow, cataloging salvaged shelving, selecting eco-friendly lighting. June, fully recovered, managed logistics with military precision. Khalid volunteered weekends installing open-source servers for the tech lab. Grace negotiated supplier discounts. Employees signed up in droves, eager to contribute paint strokes, poetry workshops, coding tutorials. The project became an atlas of collective skill. One Saturday, while measuring window frames, Logan glimpsed Evelyn on a ladder, pencil tucked behind ear. Panic flickered her heart. The fall risk, but she steadied herself with librarian composure. He exhaled and offered a steadying hand. She accepted, descending with smile. Still rescuing me, Mr. Price? Mutual rescue, he said, nerves easing. They reviewed fabric swatches for reading corner armchair, sage, marigold, cranberry. Evelyn selected sage. Peaceful but alive. Logan wrote it down, thinking the same of her. At Quantum Works, the fellowship's first application cycle launched. Within 48 hours, her inbox overflowed, a finance analyst proposing a mobile microlibrary for senior centers, a janitorial supervisor pitching a memoir of immigrant journeys, Tobias submitting an augmented reality app mapping constellations onto city skies. Selection committee: Evelyn, Logan, Margot Chen, and 2 external educators met inside the Kelsey Center. Stacks of proposals towered like leaning towers of Pisa. Evelyn insisted each application receive equal reading time, regardless of title. Logan watched her annotate margins with fountain pen flourishes, stars for novelty, hearts for empathy. During a break, he leaned over. Your face lights up when someone's courage leaps off the page. She shrugged playfully. I moonlight as courage midwife. He chuckled. Under humor, longing simmered, respect shading into affection, companionship shading into something softer, yet still unnamed. Age difference, corporate scrutiny, her health complex variables. But complexity never scared Logan in code. The richest architecture rose from tangled beginnings. Obstacles emerged, of course. Fox Hollow Town Council balked at zoning changes, increased foot traffic. Late night readings. Evelyn attended the hearing alongside Logan. Wooden nameplates lined the days. Local citizens echoed parking concerns. When Evelyn's turn came, she approached the microphone. Voice resonant. My parents' bookstore once fed this town's imagination. We aim to restore that nourishment, not crowd it. Atlas Commons will hire local vendors, mentor youth, and provide free digital literacy classes. She concluded with Samuel's favorite line from Whitman, I exist as I am. That is enough. Applause arose from unexpected corners. An elderly farmer, a teen with blue hair, a middle-aged teacher clutching dog-eared mystery novels. The council voted 5-2 in favor. Logan squeezed her hand under the table. Construction roared ahead. Evelyn documented progress on a blog titled Blueprints Bookmarks, sharing anecdotes. Tobias scraping soap residue off display windows, Grace labeling reclaimed tables with quotes, Cullen encrypting data backups named after literary heroines Joe Scout Sally. The blog gained thousands of followers. Donors mailed vintage volumes, retirees mailed checks. One entry read, we found my father's hidden poem, let the mind wander. Shelves will catch it. The contractors framed it in glass. Readers left heart emojis and comments. When does Atlas open? My grandmother taught me English with a Kelsey Company atlas. Purpose radiated outward like concentric ripples. Amid busyness, Logan and Evelyn carved private hours, a twilight picnic overlooking the harbor. A Sunday matinee of classic films afternoons spent selecting coffee beans for Atlas Cafe. Conversation deepened childhood regrets, worries of mortality. Logan confessed fear that empathy might slip again under shareholder pressures. Evelyn whispered, that's why the fellowship will outlive any quarter it has institutionalized compassion. He brushed a strand of silver hair from her forehead, hesitant. Reverent, she let the touch linger before turning to watch gulls swoop. Some moments speak louder in what remains unsaid. June brought unexpected news. She had been accepted into Boston University as part-time MBA with a scholarship, citing her leadership in the library logistics overhaul. At family dinner she announced, tears shining, I am going to finish the degree Dad always urged. Evelyn hugged her, overwhelmed with a mother's layered pride, watching generational doors swing open because she dared push one herself. Logan toasted to ladders we didn't know existed until someone lit them. Laughter warmed the room. Summer unveiled Atlas Commons' completed facade, original Kelsey Company lettering restored in burnished bronze, flanked by stained glass panels depicting quills turning into circuitry, crib on cutting scheduled for solstice. News outlets prepped features, tech CEO, retired librarian, revived town bookstore. Empathy, economics in action, Armitage Capital, still snarling, remained sidelined by public goodwill. The eve of opening, Evelyn wandered through empty aisles bathed in amber sconces. Dust motes danced. She touched spines, Austin Baldwin Ligon arranged with love. On the children's stage sat a single stool and a brass bell. She remembered story times long past, Charles's thunder law echoing in memory. Emotion welled, grief and gratitude braided. Logan entered quietly. Penny for your plot twist? She turned, eyes glistening. Just thanking all the ghosts who shelved before me. He stepped closer. May I thank one present spirit? She half smiled. Proceed. Evelyn, if not for you I'd still chase valuation like wind. You taught me texture, how profits feel when printed on human paper. Her laugh trembled. You taught me acceleration, how courage sounds at scale. Silence stretched, filled with shelves breathing ink. Logan produced a small box. She frowned. He opened it. Inside lay a pendant identical to their intertwined quills but slightly larger. The third quill newly soldered, on its stem an engraving Atlas of Us. I wanted you to wear the completed emblem at tomorrow's opening, he said, because this isn't my project or yours, it is ours, community included. Her throat closed. She nodded, allowing him to clasp the chain. Metal rested against her collarbone, warm from his poem. Fits? He asked, voice husky. Like renewed heartbeat, she whispered. Impulse surged, she rose to her toes. kissed his cheek soft, deliberate. He stilled, then leaned his forehead against hers. Breaths mingling, hearts thundering, no declarations, only acknowledgement. Affection matured into love resilient enough to ignore calendars. They parted gently. Tomorrow, she said. He smiled. Tomorrow. Solstice dawned bright. Crowds filled Fox Hollow's revitalized Main Street locals. Quantum work staff, fellowship applicants, curious tourists. A brass band tuned up. Aroma of cinnamon buns floated from pop-up stands. On a low platform, Evelyn stood with Logan, June, town council head, and Tobias wielding ceremonial scissors clearly too large for his teenage hands. Evelyn addressed the gathering. My parents believed words build worlds. Today we reopen their doorway and invite you in. Applause rippled. She added, eyes shining. Let stories cross-pollinate with science. Tea, code, and cocoa. Let us build dreams together. Tobias snipped, ribbon fluttered. Cheers erupted. Confetti cannons puffed biodegradable paper stars. Inside, visitors gasped at sunlight spilling through stained glass quills onto rows of books interspersed with holographic displays demonstrating employee inventions. A toddler pressed nose to a 3D diorama of Narnia. An elderly man hummed jazz near vinyl stacks. Energy buzzed like bees in clover. June ran cafe counters, glads named after novelists, the Bronte, the Baldwin, the Marquez. Khaled demoed in our installation overlaying Whitman poems onto town landmarks. Grace led a scavenger hunt linking logistics puzzles to Dickens clues. Reporters scribbled furiously. Mid-afternoon, Evelyn rang the brass bell calling for inaugural story hour. Children and adults clustered around the stage. She opened Persuasion, the original Laffy-stained copy Charles had once ruined and replaced. She read the scene wherein Elliot listens to Captain Wentworth's letter. Word quavering with love's delayed arrival but undeniable force. Her voice vibrated through rafters. Logan watched from the back, tears unnoticed amid many. When she finished, silence hung sacred, then thunderous applause. Evelyn bowed slightly, cheeks flushed. She caught Logan's gaze. They exchanged a private smile, the equilibrium of two people who finally found home inside possibility. Evening settled, fairy lights twined among maple trunks. A small group core team. Town elders, fellowship finalists gathered on Atlas rooftop terrace. Stars winked above. Tobias SR app traced constellations on their phones. Logan tapped glass for attention. This morning, Atlas Commons felt like culmination. He began, but truly, it is prologue. Tonight I am thrilled to announce the first fellowship cohort. He called names. Khaled mission to teach cybersecurity in refugee camps. Gray supply chain resilience toolkit for nonprofits. June research on equitable corporate parental leave. Gasps, cheers, tears. Finally, Logan cleared throat, and our honorary lifetime fellow Evelyn Grant tasked with curating traveling libraries for underserved towns. Ovation swelled. Evelyn pressed a hand to mouth, eyes shimmering. She stepped forward, voice steady. I accept, on condition we remember this. Every fellowship story must include a footnote thanking those whose unpaid labor made our chapters possible. Mothers, janitors, cafeteria workers, caregivers. Heads nodded, emotional. Logan raised his glass. To building dreams together, one shelf, one line of code, one act of care at a time. Glasses blinked. Constellation lines flickered overhead. Orion hugging Atlas. Cosmic affirmation. Later, as guests descended, Logan and Evelyn lingered. Warm breeze ruffled tablecloths. Distant crickets stitched night music. Logan turned to her. When I was 15, I built a computer game where players assemble worlds from words. Tonight I saw it in reality. Evelyn placed her palm on his chest, pendant glinting between them. World building is best in company. He clasped her hand, pulse steady. Would you consider drafting the next volume with me? Not just projects life. She inhaled, gaze luminous. I once thought my life had reached epilogue. But UV-proven margins can host new paragraphs. Yes, Logan. Let us co-author. He leaned in. This time she met him halfway. Their kiss tasted of mint tea and unfolding chapters, gentle, confident, unhurried. Above, stars blurred into commas of light, pausing the sentence of sky so two souls could find grammar of belonging. When they parted, Evelyn laughed, a melodic chime. Wheels scandalized the gossip columns. He grinned. Let them footnote happiness. Hand in hand, they descended to the hushed bookstore below, where volunteers shelved the last donations. The door chimed. Night breeze sighed through aisles, carrying scent of wood, ink, fresh start. Together they switched off lamps until a single reading nook remained lit, a beacon for the cleaning crew, or perhaps for ghosts grateful their shelves breathe again. Standing in semi-dark, Logan whispered, ready for chapter next. Evelyn squeezed his fingers, turned the page. A buttery April sun spilled across the meadows of Concord, Massachusetts. gilding every stem of clover and turning the historic Old North Bridge into an impressionist brushstroke. Sheets of white blossoms drifted from apple trees like soft confetti courtesy of nature, free of charge while a quartet tuned ellows beneath a canvas pavilion trimmed in sage ribbon. Most weddings begin with trembling bridesmaids and frantic florists. Evelyn Grant and Logan Prices began with a library cart. Polished birch, wheels oiled silent, it rolled down a grassy aisle between rows of folding chairs, pushed by Tobias and Leela in matching linen suits. On the cart sat 30 hand-picked volumes, love letters disguised as books. Each guest would choose one on departure, inscription awaiting discovery, because for a librarian marrying a technocrat, stories were better favors than sugared almonds. Evelyn, 72, lingered behind the garden trellis arch, inhaling lilac and dew. Her dress silvery dove-gray chiffon with embroidered quills along the hem danced lightly in the breeze, revealing sensible flats dyed periwinkle. June fussed with the satin sash. Stop worrying, Evelyn chided. The bride is allowed wrinkles. June smiled, eyes misting. They read footnotes of a well-read life. She handed her mother a small silk pouch. Inside lay the hummingbird brooch, newly repaired, wings inlaid with sapphires the color of dawn. Something old, made new, June whispered. Evelyn pinned it over her heart. For a moment she closed her eyes and pictured Charles, Samuel, her parents, all the souls whose absence felt like a sharp inhale before a sentence. She pressed 2 fingers to the brooch, a silent invocation, share this joy. Beyond the trellis, guests gathered, Quantum Works engineers eating mini scones, Fox Hollow elders trading gossip. Board chair Beatrice glorying, clutching a disposable camera like a tourist in wonder. Reporters were absent. This day was embargoed under threat of Camille Duarte's fiercest glare. Only family, friends, fellowship recipients, and the orchard SBs bore witness. Down by the footbridge, Logan adjusted his moss green suit, a sprig of lavender in the lapel. Khalid straightened the boutonniere, then stepped back, ready. No PowerPoint, no teleprompter, Logan joked, heartbeat galloping, just vows. And a lifetime footnote, Khalid quipped, patting his shoulder. The string quartet shifted into a hush. Gray signaled with a nod, bride approaching. The processional. June emerged first, carrying a single book instead of bouquet, Persuasion. Its spine restored from coffee stains, she placed it on a lectern beside the officiant, Rabbi Emeritus David Stein, whose gentle eyes twinkled behind round spectacles. Next came Tobias and Leela, cart in tow, earning murmurs of delight. At last Evelyn stepped through the trellis. A collective intake of breath rippled. She did not glide, she walked sure-footed, head high, as if shelving volumes in perfect dewy order down a corridor of sunlight. Logan's throat constricted. All the boardrooms, all the stock bells. None prepared him for the sight of a librarian rewriting destiny with each measured step. Halfway down, she paused. On a nearby chair sat Mrs. Collins, the neighbor who had once dialed 911 during Evelyn's heart scare. Evelyn bent, pressed lips to the woman's cheek, and whispered, "Thank you for calling the ambulance." Applause fluttered softly. Then she continued. Arriving beneath an arch woven of quills and circuitry shapes designed courtesy of Tobias S.R. Applizer cut into plywood. Opening words. Rabbi Stein began, voice warm. Today we gather not to start a story, but to honor one already in motion, a narrative proving that chapter titles can come long after we think a book is shelved. He gestured to the orchard. Spring reminds us blossoms grow on branches that endured winter. He invited the couple to share how they met. Instead of speaking, Logan reached behind a barrel and produced an old janitor, a spray bottle empty. Label faded, laughter bubbled. "My catalyst," he said. Evelyn lifted from her pocket a Montblanc pen. "Mine," she replied. Vows. They had agreed on word limits, 200 each. Logan's voice, steady but thick, carried first. "I once believed value equaled utility times profitability. Then a woman in borrowed coveralls corrected my math. She dusted my desk, but more she dusted my soul, revealing stories I'd neglected. Evelyn, I vow to keep your margins wide, your chapters uncensored. I vow to read every edition of you, even errata, even sequels yet unwritten. When your knees ache, I will fetch ladders. When your heart races, I will brew chamomile. When grief's footnotes appear, I will annotate with love." He slipped a ring onto her finger, white gold set with a single pear-shaped diamond flanked by 2 tiny book-shaped sapphires. Evelyn exhaled, eyes bright. "My turn is longer," she teased, and the guests chuckled. She began. "Logan, you arrived in my life like an interlibrary loan stamped rush, unexpected, urgent. You saw beyond dust jackets to the resilience in my spine. I vow to shelve our arguments respectfully, to catalog your achievements truthfully, and to circulate your kindness widely. I promise to remind you profitability is only a preface, never the epilogue. When cables tangle, I'll bring the flashlight. When days glare, I'll close the blinds and read to you. Above all, I vow to co-author with wonder, formatting love in 14-point Georgia. Double-spaced for breath. She slid a band onto his hand, titanium brushed matte, with 3 engraved quills intertwined. Blessings traditions. June stepped forward with a crystal pitcher of water from Fox Hollow as well ancestral ground. Rabbi Stein poured into a silver kiddush cup, reciting Shetihianu, the Jewish prayer of gratitude for reaching this season. Logan, though not Jewish, echoed amen, eyes watering. Next, Margot Chen presented a Tibetan singing bowl. She struck it softly. The note hung vibrating hearts. May your frequencies align, she said. Grace released 2 carrier pigeons rescued by an animal shelter, symbolizing messages flying always home. The birds wheeled above blossoms, white on white, before vanishing into sky. Surprise toast. Beatrice Loring requested the floorboard chair, queen of stoic budgets. Now holding a dog-eared copy of Johnson's dictionary, page 1327, she announced, resilience, the act of reconciling and springing again. Today, resilience is not a cost center. It is a heart center. On behalf of the board, we pledge $10 million to expand the Kelsey Fellowship globally. Guests applause. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Logan mouthed, thank you. Pronouncement breaking of glass. Rabbi Stein wrapped a thin windglass in cloth. Logan placed it underfoot. This glass reminds us that joy is precious and must be protected, Stein said. When shattered, may we recall to gather fragments into art. With a decisive stomp, Logan broke it. Guests shouted Mazel Tov. The string quartet erupted into Handel's hornpipe, lively as spring rain. Reception under the orchard canopy. Servers circulated trays labeled by literary genre: mystery stuffed mushrooms with hidden truffle, romance strawberries dipped in pink chocolate, science fiction nitrogen cookled lime sorbet billowing fog. Evelyn sampled everything, cheeks rosy. At one point she found Logan leaning against the bridge watching guests. His tie hung loose, shoes grass stained. She joined him, rating so far 5 stars on Goodreads, he said, slipping an arm around her waist. Nearby, Tobias and Leela performed a slam poetry piece about algorithms and empathy. Colored live transcribed onto a screen, code syntax highlighting their metaphors. Operators from Quantum Works AV team projected constellations across tree trunks courtesy of Tobias SR app. Children chased light patterns, laughter blending with cello notes. A walk among rows. As dusk approached, Evelyn beckoned Logan between apple rows, lanterns bobbing overhead. Petals carpeted the ground. She lifted her dress to avoid damp earth. I feared scandal, she admitted softly. Some people can't comprehend love between different pay grades, different decades. Logan stopped, facing her. Numbers don't clock wonder. He produced 2 origami cranes, Camilla's handiwork wired to slender sticks. Shall we plant them? They inserted the cranes into soil near a budding sapling. Evelyn whispered. Grow. Logan folded her into his arms. For a long moment they listened to wind ruffle leaves, nature's page turn. Evening program. Twinkling fairy lights ignited overhead. June introduced the fellowship as first anthology, Unshelved. Volume 1. Contributor signed copies. Evelyn signed with flourish. Date below, April 23. World Book Day. Mitchell, the CFO, surprised everyone with a jazz piano rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, revealing a creative side previously hidden behind spreadsheets. Board members swayed. Andrea, the security chief, slow danced with her wife. At 9 o'clock, fireworks spelled red in sky blue sparks. Smartphones tilted. Logan whispered to Evelyn, marketing budget well spent. She replied, best be ever, kinetic public inspiration. He laughed. She invented a new metric. Late-night library cart. Guests began selecting their departing books. An elderly janitor chose The Old Man and the Sea. Small boats, big faith, he said. A marketing intern picked Invisible Man. Grinding, for visibility. Each inscription bore Evelyn's fountain pen signature and a Logan footnote. Value store too. Quiet afterglow. By 11 the orchard emptied, leaving only lantern glow and crickets. Logan escorted Evelyn to a renovated barn loft honeymoon suite for one night before a week-long train journey to Portland, Oregon, where they would tour independent bookstores. Inside, beams framed vintage quilts, and on a desk lay a leather journal embossed with 3 quills. Logan opened to the first blank page. In violet ink, Evelyn wrote Chapter 1 of the married edition. The library is never closed. Logan added beneath 24 tour checkout policies apply to hugs. They exchanged shy laughter, teenage giddy despite social security eligibility, hers and silver strands his. He poured sparkling cider, they linked glasses. Evelyn set hers down. Logan, may I ask a daring question? Please. If years from now my heart falters again, promise me you won't armor yourself inside skyscrapers. Promise you I'll let grief turn into community, not concrete. He placed a hand atop hers. I promise to architect spaces for feeling, not just function. And you promise you will keep annotating my blind spots. She nodded, eyes lucid. Deal. They sealed it with a kiss more deliberate than passionate, soaking in the miracle of shared breath. Outside, an owl hooted, a punctuation mark on night. Epilogue ceremony next morning. Sunrise painted the orchard gold. Under a smaller arch, just the two of them, Evelyn performed a tradition of her own, making the exchange of blank pages. She handed Logan an unmarked paperback notebook. He gave her one. 2. Anytime one of us learns something worth sharing, she said, we'll jot it here and swap at month's end. He opened to page 1 and wrote April 24, love expands bandwidth. He tore it out, folded, slid into her pocket. She wrote April 24, bandwidth fuels love. They laughed at symmetry. Back to reality transformed. The newlyweds returned to Boston to find Quantum Works buzzing. Stock ticked upward after fellowship press coverage. Armitage sold its stake, exiting with statement, we respect innovative cultural policies. Translation, public opinion 1. Employees greeted Evelyn as Mrs. Price. She blushed, requesting first names only. At the Kelsey Center she replaced her name tag. Evelyn Price Grant, still your librarian. Logan framed her old janitor badge on a plaque, first edition. June balanced MBA night classes with cafe management. Tobias SR Constellation app secured venture funding. Leela began an apprenticeship in archival restoration. Atlas Commons hosted poetry slams. Coding bootcamps. Alzheimer as story circles. One evening an 8-year-old girl whispered to Evelyn, I want to be a library builder. Evelyn replied, start now. Build a fortress of words around your dreams. Closing image. One late May afternoon, Logan and Evelyn rode bicycles along the esplanade. In her basket, fresh baguette, cheese, and a bundle of returned fellowship proposals. They parked under a willow. Logan unfolded a blanket printed with the periodic table, his geeky contribution. Evelyn spread proposal pages like playing cards. Together they read, debated, selected 3 for next funding round. Sunlight dappled through leaves, patterning their joined hands. A passerby asked, excuse me, are you the couple who turned a bookstore into a tech hub? Evelyn and Logan exchanged a glance, smiled. We read the couple still writing that story, Evelyn answered. And as the wind flipped proposal pages, carrying them momentarily airborne, it looked very much like books taking flight, chapters unbound, ready for wherever springtime vows might scatter seeds of narrative next.